Good evening. I'm Spot On Weather meteorologist Matthew Euler, and tonight I thought we'd do something different and take a look at the average weather, or the climatology, for the month of June for southeastern Virginia, mainly focused on the Hampton Roads cities. All right, and I do want to mention before we get started that all climatological data is courtesy of the WeatherSpark website. WeatherSpark is a great resource for all climatological data, and you'll see the type of graphics that you're able to get for any city in the United States. So it's really good. All right, so we're going to start off and taking a look at the average high and low temperatures for the month of June for the Hampton Roads cities in southeast Virginia. As you can see, starting on June 1st, the average high temperature is about 79 degrees Fahrenheit, and as the month progresses, you'll notice how the temperature gradually, the average high temperature warms to an average of 85 by June 30th, by the end of the month. So the red line here represents your average high temperatures, and then the blue line here represents your average low temperatures overnight into the early morning. Just like the high temperatures rise throughout the month, we expect the same thing to happen with the low temperatures at night. Starting around June 1st, average low is 64 degrees Fahrenheit, rising up to an average low of 71 degrees by the end of the month. That's when we really start getting into the muggy type conditions across the area. Moving on to relative humidity. Now, being on the east coast of the United States, our general wind direction and wind flow is dictated by the position of the Azores or the Bermuda high pressure system over the western Atlantic Ocean. And with the clockwise flow around the high, we typically get more of a southeasterly to southwesterly wind flow, which results in fairly significant humidity across the area. These are the type of days with the high humidity that really make you feel uncomfortable and sweat quite a bit. And we start off here in the average relative humidity starting in June 1st, not too bad. 33% on average, not bad at all. But as you see, as we go throughout the month, the humidity will gradually increase up to 68% average by June 30th. And we are in this yellow area, which is the humid area. So you see the different characteristics for the relative humidity. There's dry air, comfortable, humid, muggy, oppressive, and miserable. You definitely don't want to be in the miserable area, but you notice down here the scale tells you the comfort levels, and we're basing this off of the dew point temperature. The dew point temperature is a very important value in that usually above 60 degrees is when you really start feeling the humidity starting to creep in. But the different categories are based on the different levels of dew point. So for example, dry has a dew point of less than 55 degrees Fahrenheit. Comfortable levels tend to be between 55 and 60, and then you get more humid between 60 and 65. And once you get greater than 65, you start getting that muggy feeling. And then between 70 and 75, it's oppressive. And if you ever get a dew point greater than 75 degrees Fahrenheit, you are downright miserable. So that's generally how we categorize, how WeatherSpark categorizes their categories. Average cloud coverage, and this is, you got to think about this, the heating of the day typically leads to more of the cumuliform or cumulus type clouds. But on average, we are basically in partly cloudy conditions throughout the month, 46% cloud coverage to 48%. You will notice that, again, you can read the below information on how these are categorized based on the percentage of the sky covered by clouds. Clear is less than 20% coverage. Then you have mostly clear, less than 40%. The partly cloudy is between 40 and 60%, and so on. So as you can see, we have partly cloudy on average for the sky condition for southeast Virginia in the Hampton Roads area. For average precipitation for June, what we expect is generally between 3.1 and 3.3 inches overall. The dark shade, the shading here generally indicates where the majority of the past climatological data for the average precip has occurred, mainly between 2.5 inches up to as much as 4 inches, this darker gray shading. But on average, these are average values for the month of June. And a lot of this precipitation falls in the form of daytime heating, heating of the day and thunderstorm activity. For the average wind direction, this just shows you the percentage of hours in which the mean wind direction is from each of the four cardinal wind directions. We break it down into the four cardinal points north, east, south, and west, excluding hours in which the mean wind speed. So we don't take into account wind speeds less than 1 miles per hour for a nearly calm wind. It's got to be greater than 1 mile per hour winds. And we just show you here what the general percentages are for the wind directions. Makes sense that a lot of it's from the south, between 40, generally about 40% for June, and 55% in June. The winds are from the south. So that happens quite a bit. The westerly winds are less in the month of June because we get more of a sea breeze even off of the, as the land heats, the wind will blow in off the relatively cooler waters of the Atlantic. For average wind speed, we really don't have much. Southeast Virginia really doesn't have much as far as higher wind speeds in the month of June. We're in a very weak wind flow pattern. We don't have major storm systems like we do in the wintertime and early spring across Southeast Virginia at this time. A lot of these breezes are lighter. The synoptic pattern, the pressure gradients, all that is much weaker. The jet stream is further to the north along the U.S.-Canadian border, well north of Southeast Virginia. So there's not a lot of dynamics in the atmosphere in June. So your average wind speeds are very light, ranging from 5.1 to 5.6 miles per hour on average. For the daily incident shortwave solar energy, so how do we get this? How do WeatherSpark compute this? The average daily shortwave solar energy is the amount of solar energy that reaches the ground per square meter. And that's represented by this orange line here for the month of June. So June 1st, we have 6.8 kilowatt hours. That's the unit we use for the shortwave solar energy. And then it actually rises to 6.9 around June 11th, kilowatt hours, and then back down to 6.8 by June 30th. Not a lot of variability in the amount of solar energy that reaches the Earth's surface this time of year. The sun angle is very high. The sun's very high in the sky, resulting in a very direct sun angle per surface area, per square meter surface area. So these are some of the highest values you are going to see throughout the year over Southeast Virginia in the month of June. You noticed the scale ranges in the vertical on the y-axis from 0 kilowatt hours to 9 kilowatt hours. If you were in a desert area, you most likely would be, for example, Phoenix, Arizona, you would most likely be much higher on the average kilowatt hours. And then total daylight hours, we have to factor this in. Around the summer solstice in the northern hemisphere, which by the way, the summer solstice is June 21st. That is our longest day of the year here in Southeast Virginia. So we start off on June 1st with 14 hours and 32 minutes of daylight. And by that summer solstice, the longest day of the year in the northern hemisphere, the most amount of daylight, we have 14 hours and 41 minutes, and that's where we typically peak. All right, and then generally north of this line here, average daylight hours, total daylight hours, that's when you get the nighttime effects. So if, for example, we have 14 hours, 32 minutes of daylight on June 1st, that means we only have we have under 9 hours of darkness. And then finally, to conclude this June climatological summary for Southeast Virginia, we look at the average water temperatures, and this is very important. We got a lot of vacationers down at Virginia Beach. What you see is 67 degrees Fahrenheit to start things off on June 1st. And then look how the water temperature is warm, about 8-degree warmth between the beginning and end of the month. So by June 30th, we're looking at 75-degree water temperatures offshore. So a very good time to get in the water for all you beach goers or beach lovers and the vacationers that come into the area. All right, and I just wanted to mention something here with this climatological data. It goes back to 1980. The range is 1980 to 2016. And again, I want to thank WeatherSpark for this data. I think it's important to show you the general weather that we expect across Southeast Virginia. So, you could pay attention to the TV weatherman or anybody for that matter and know what's normal and what's not normal for the area. All right, well, that will wrap it up this evening. I hope everybody has a great Saturday evening. That is all from Spot On Weather. Remember, if we're not spot on, we're not doing it right. Have a great, great Saturday evening, everyone.